Harry and Meghan, Meghan Markle, the royal family, Oprah Winfrey, Netflix. Where will this lawsuit land next? The once happy family with Meghan Markle sitting on the lap of Samantha. Samantha with Meghan Markle. We have part 2 of an incredible series, The Wedding Invitation That Never Came. The massive wedding for Harry and Meghan. The adoring fans, the love of a whole country on 2 continents, actually. The Queen adoring the newly married couple. We have Meghan hiding and peeking, God knows why, but things turn dark. Why? Why have they turned so dark? We have Samantha and Meghan in a lawsuit. All right, I wrote a book that really gets into like Prince Andrew and my unfortunate relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and certain things that I've seen in the Palm Beach mansion. My first book was covered by Nancy Grace, and she covered it on her podcast. It was about Robert Durst, and so there was so many, mostly positive because I came forward against Epstein and Maxwell many, many years ago and wasn't taken seriously. And then I was able to get some evidence over to the authorities. So I decided just to write a book about it. And so many negative things were put out there, but at the same time, outlets like The Sun interviewed me, and they did a pretty balanced story, about my relationship with her. We have some footage, but I understand the power of these groups because I'm not even going to repeat what it was, but there was one thing that was inaccurate that really spread around the world real quick, and I feel like you have to put out a fire, but at the same time, it's like, you know what, let it run its course because you kind of, in certain instances, I know you said enough is enough, so here's the lawsuit. But in certain instances, things can run their course. Like in my case, with A&E Network, I picked up some trolls because of the show. Now I have millions of fans now. I'm completely blessed. I want to use my platform to help people. Okay, I have an unfortunate nonviolent criminal history, but I used my past, and I was a law clerk to help people today: crime victims, victims of domestic violence, stalking. We have all kinds of people on the shows, and I have 2 books coming out. I have people that have, like, for no reason, like, hate me because I served some time. Okay, maybe you were a crime victim, but I didn't. You don't have to like me. You don't have to watch my show. You don't have to see that I'm trying to turn my life around by helping other people using my experiences, because the media will only play stories about people that had served time who screw up. If it bleeds, it leads. Those are the stories. They don't show the stories like me and some of my friends, like, Cyril DePazio and guys that got out, did a lot of time. They're making movies now. They're helping people. They're reaching back. They're starting halfway houses and ministries. They're reaching back into the prisons. Nobody wants to hear that in the public. So I know what it's like to get bad press and, to rely on somebody to help resolve it. And I'm kind of old school. I picked up a troll and I dealt with him privately in Messenger. And I got in a little trouble for that. I didn't say anything, threatening or anything, but I did say, hey, you're a coward hiding in your mother's, freaking basement. I'm not hiding. I'm from New York. I don't bite my tongue. I try to treat you respectfully. All you do is, talk crap. But you know what? I was wasting my time. That's one person out of like millions who love me and all this, praise I'm getting. And I think that it's really, really, it's devastating to me because you're disabled. You're in a wheelchair. My mother was mentally ill. And so I had to defend her from bullies all of my life. And yet when I was incarcerated, I had family members tell her I was deceased. And then when she passed away, steal, $800,000 inheritance from me. And so I know what it's like to have people who are disabled abused, and it just infuriates me. It really bothers me what's going on with you, and that your sister and Harry, Prince Harry, they live in California, living beautiful lives. Yes, people that are wealthy are not necessarily happy, but they're certainly more comfortable than we are. They have the ability to end this with a press conference and whatever it takes with attorneys to get rid of these stalkers to end this for you. And they're not doing it.
Yeah, it goes really broad. I mean, I've seen people call me a child abuser, a cat killer.
Oh,
and no, this is really strange. I mean, imagine you had someone in your life, accuse you falsely of things, someone who abuses legal process, a crazy ex, someone to me, and it went nowhere because it had no merit. And then Twitter trolls get a hold of obsolete documents and things that had no merit. You were never charged. They went nowhere. You had crazy people in your life who said stuff because they wanted revenge. But trolls get a hold of it, and they start photoshopping things, and they start showing fragments of documents, and the public believe that they're real. But people aren't smart enough to say, well, wait a minute, that's pretty serious. First of all, Samantha's in a wheelchair. She couldn't possibly do this. Second of all, she's a mental health counselor. Third of all, if this had any merit, don't you think it would have moved forward to court with criminal charges and she'd have been prosecuted? It's not like, oh, Samantha, there are all these horrible things out there about you, but you're so cute and special. We're just going to let you skip off into the sunset. It doesn't work that way.
Well, they've got these people that are mentally unstable, stalking you relentlessly for a few years now, making all sorts of death threats, encouraging other people to come after you based upon lies that were, that you're saying were lies that your sister has been spreading through PR, and you're in a wheelchair. You're helpless. I mean, what is wrong with this picture? We're all God-fearing people. Make this right already. Make this go away. You have the ability to do it.
Well, and more than that, she's interacted with my family. She's interacted with my daughters. She knows I never lost custody of any child. I have court records that show that. I have court records that show that some of those bogus allegations went nowhere and were dismissed with prejudice. Right. But I've got Twitter trolls who don't understand something like reverse captioning. So they don't understand that there was never a protective order issued against me. I was never charged. CYFD could never articulate any abuse. It went nowhere. So it doesn't matter what fake or Photoshop or letter was lingering out there. The court said dismissed with prejudice. So I shouldn't be tried and convicted in a psychotic court of public opinion by trolls who don't understand logic, who don't understand the law, and to take that and to put it in media or to take that and spread it on social media is really sick and it's dangerous. I kind of feel like the media should have an ethical obligation to engage in fact finding, to understand the legal process when they are quoting documents or outcomes. And social media trolls get a hold of this stuff, and it's really dangerous. It's like somebody who doesn't know how to handle a firearm getting loose in the Coliseum with one, just.
And the recent Netflix, I think it's 6-part special that your sister and her husband Harry did. Your daughter ASHLEIGH is in there. Evidently, she's an accomplished woman in her own right. She's an attorney, and seems like a very well balanced individual who was devastated that Meghan makes a decision not to invite her to the biggest wedding in the planet, absent maybe Diana's. And your family, who has your sister on your knee and spending time with her even after she's famous, you're not invited. And yet she tells ASHLEIGH she's not invited because it would look bad that you're not invited. Right. Further, we immediately noticed some signs that couldn't have been an honest story, because it would almost seem like she's trying to poison ASHLEIGH's mind against you for some reason and trying to take her under the wing, in her camp, so to speak. Right. And how do you feel about it? How does it feel? How do you feel about ASHLEIGH and that whole interview?
It was sad. I felt like she was abused. I felt like she was manipulated on the grounds that she and I had reconnected, after many years. When she was little, I didn't trust babysitters. I was in Los Angeles. And I had the opportunity for my kids to have a charmed life, being raised with their grandparents in Virginia, going to the best schools, being able to be raised with all of the same friends and the same teachers, and not be left with babysitters and not be pulled between two parents, because her father and I couldn't work things out and get along, and we weren't established in our careers. So when I was a kid at one point, I had babysitters. I had some bad experiences. I didn't feel safe with that. So for me to want her to have a charmed life, and then to be able to reconnect with her was like magic. I thought as women, we can really grow together and grow old now with an understanding. Not that I would be her mom because I allowed her grandmother to fill those shoes, but in her heart, she would know that I loved her as a mother and as a woman.
Of course.
And so she had expressed in the Netflix thing that I said some harsh words to her. Well, I did at the time when my father was being ignored. There was all this stuff going on behind closed doors that ASHLEIGH didn't know about. And I was trying to tell her, it's not what you seem. You're being told lies. This is the truth of the family, and this is the way it is. And I'm telling the truth, and it all just has to come out in the wash. But she felt like I was bashing my sister, and they had formed a bond, I think, on false pretenses. And so when we were reconnecting, my sister seemingly decided to weaponize my daughter against me by lying to her and saying that she couldn't go to the wedding because of me. Well, I came to find out journalists that it was up to my sister to go to the wedding. So that was
Right.
a
Your
lie.
sister said on the Netflix documentary, we just watched it again today to get prepared to speak to you. Your sister clearly said, we received guidance not to invite ASHLEIGH if you were not going to be invited. If Samantha, the sister, wasn't going to be invited. And I said, me and Mary, my fiance, for this audience, immediately looked at each other and said, that doesn't even sound right. It's still her and Harry's wedding. Harry wants this woman to be happy. Whoever she wants to be there is going to be there. You know, so it was her call. The heck with the guidance. Guidance is just that.
Well, what kind of humanitarian and diplomat would do that to a sister in a wheelchair and her own niece instead of saying, you know what, we're a family. Let's get together. Let's all get on the same page. Why would she abuse my daughter like that? Why would she abuse me like that? It all seemed to be an angle and a game and, a manipulative strategy, in my opinion, to get my daughter under her control and to do damage to me falsely.
If you was
So
if you were speaking directly to ASHLEIGH right at this moment, what would you say to her? If you obviously she may watch this, what would you say to her?
I think the road that we were going down was beautiful and I loved you. I wasn't speaking harsh words to hurt you. I was trying to tell you the truth. And although I wanted you to have a relationship with Meg, I feel like I understand that you got caught up in the royal swell and that you believe the negative PR out there because you didn't know that there was an entrenched media agenda that I later found out existed. And the things that you were saying about me in the media weren't true.
Right.
But it's an easy group thing, Swell, to get caught up in. I get that. But everything I did out of love for you. And it was really sad to see this royal wedding be, the wrench in the works and what came between us so unjustly. And, I can't be your mom because I made the decision to let your grandmother be your mom. But I wanted to be your friend. I wanted you to know how much I loved you. And my sister, your aunt, took that away. And I think that's very cruel. I think it's very sad. And, I hope we can get that back. Because it was all so wrong and insane, in my opinion. So I want you to take a step back as an attorney using deductive reasoning and really look at all of that and come to me with your questions and understand that. And we believe that narcissism is involved. I believe that it's a manipulative strategy and that it's about control and that it's about lies. And it hurt you and it hurt me, and it doesn't have to be that way forever because life is very short.
Life is precious, life is very short, very precious. ASHLEIGH, we saw you on television. Your mother has a heart for you, would love to reconnect with you for no other reason than she's your mother. She loves you, and she's heartbroken over this. We've spoken at length. Reach out to mom. And I'm going through stuff with family as well, so I understand that kind of pain and desire to reconcile with people who, for other reasons or falsehoods, don't want to do it or take that step. So, but unfortunately, it seems like you were fed, a spin on things and maybe didn't fully understand where your mother was coming from. But reach out, and I just, I'm glad you were able to say that to her. It's just you seem like you've been hit with this tsunami of insanity, really, and just because your sister happened to marry somebody in the royal family. Now, there's a scene in this documentary where she tells the interviewer, "I told Prince Charles, I lost my dad over this, basically over marrying Harry, and would you walk me down the aisle? And he agreed and walked her down the aisle, which was very nice of him. Gentleman walked her down the aisle. He seems like he's got his own drama in the past, but we all do. We all have things we do that we regret or don't regret or would rather not the world know about. But he seems like basically a good guy. So he walks her down the aisle. But I was thinking when I saw her say that, I was like, Meghan, wait a minute. You're the one excluding your dad over this. From everything I've heard and seen documentation of, he's done nothing but love you, support you, and finance everything you've ever done, all the way up until young adulthood or whatever. I didn't get it how she could say that on national TV. Yet you have all this proof, and so does your father, that it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, and
everybody.
Even in her UN speech and in the TIG, to be praising Dad, for Dad to be the first one she calls to announce that she met Harry. For all of that just to go away, we couldn't figure out why until we realized that it was both sides of the family. The Raglands weren't invited either. It wasn't that the Markles were horrible and there was some character flaw. Nobody was invited. Our Uncle Mike, who worked for the United States Embassy, who wrote the letter of recommendation for the 5-week study program for the embassy, which brings me back to the point that was a lie. She probably told the royals she worked for the embassy. She did a 5-week study program. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's like a biology student telling everybody that all of a sudden he or she is a heart surgeon.
Right.
You don't do it. You be yourself and be honest about where you are. And to get the letter of recommendation from Uncle Mike, and then not to invite him to the wedding either. Wow, you would think if you're marrying into the royal family, you've got a dad who's won 2 Emmy Awards, your sister's a mental health counselor, your uncle worked for the United States Embassy and retired. He retired from the Air Force and then the embassy as a diplomat. Why wouldn't you want to show them off and be proud and introduce them? So there had to be another agenda. Well, because when people are at a wedding reception, they start drinking champagne and they start talking, albeit innocently, about life, about school, about family get-togethers, about, grants, scholarships that didn't exist, about Dad was proud to pay for all of her education. And then that would destroy whatever lies were told when she met Harry and the royals. So it seemed like the whole goal was to destroy and throw the family under the bus. So they couldn't talk and reveal all of that. And if they did talk, it wouldn't be credible because the media had thrown all of this dirt on us and clouded our characters.
Right. And even if it was said, innocently, it could have undermined like the false narrative she had been feeding Harry and the royal family. I don't know if did they ever vet her, like her credentials or anything she's claimed to Harry before they, you would think a security team or MI5 would say, hey, we have a litany of really troubling stuff on her. Are you sure you want to do this? And, most guys, if they're in love and that's past, would say, yes, I still love her. I'm fine. Thank you for the information and go about your life. But, she's so ashamed of saying things from her past. I don't know. There's plenty of things out there that we won't get into right now. I mean, I know you don't want to talk about some of the stuff you're aware of. I know a lot.
Let's face facts. Tom Bauer, Lady Colin Campbell, who is also an expert in narcissism, but verified the receipts about what was in my book. Tom Bauer, who's an excellent researcher, verified that everything we were saying was true. So, it seems pretty heinous to damage a whole family and lie about your interactions. So what? We only put out 10, 20 photos, all of us. I have 3 or 4 photos of my brother, maybe 2 or 3 of my grandmother. We didn't have cell phones in the 80s to photograph every moment. Life unfolds at a fast pace and you can't photograph everything that you do as a family. But that was a real family life, real bodies of experiences. We had a right to talk about them, but we didn't know that we were being assassinated in terms of our characters, to be silenced. And so it's really cruel to destroy a whole family just to hide one's lies. And we couldn't fathom or foresee that this was going on. It took a lot of research and soul searching and, talking about it and putting the pieces of the puzzle together to see what was really going on.
Right.
because you can't get your brain around something that's shocking, that
So
comes
now,
out of nowhere. Yeah.
now, now that a lot of this is coming out, and I think even beforehand, I think it's really disgusting, in this day and age for anybody, this certain political party, especially, they always play the race card, the race this, race. It's not about race. We all have the same hopes, dreams, and goals for ourselves, for our children, for our loved ones. And it seems like to run interference for everything else going on, a deflection, they started playing the race card. Well, from what I see, most of Britain loves her. Of course, there's going to be maybe racists here and there, but most of Britain loves Meghan Markle and that this is going on. Yet this guy quit the royal family. How does she convince him to do? How in the world did he come to that conclusion? Did he feel she was in danger from paparazzi like Diana?
Well, in my opinion, the trajectory and the Megxit or the Exodus had more to do with a progressive rule breaking. Like there was, she was being scrutinized reportedly about lavish spending, and then lies were being revealed. The Fiji speech, the education. So the public were criticizing and questioning those inconsistencies.
What's the BG
And so
speech? Refresh my memory. What is the BG speech?
in her speech in Fiji, she got up and said that it was through, I know what it's like to struggle for secondary education or post-secondary education because it was through grants and scholarships and financial aid that I was able to attend college.
Right.
Well, that was a lie, taking all of the accolades away from Dad when Dad paid every penny. Those receipts have been verified. School administrators have spoken to people like Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bauer, and my dad's spoken to them. My dad paid every penny of her education. And so why lie in your first royal speech and say something like that when there are parents and young people all over the world looking up to her? She could have said, we are so grateful that parents love us. My dad was amazing. And for all of you parents around the world who scrimp and save and find ways to give your children an education, bravo. That is a gift from God. We are so blessed. And instead of doing that, she would rather lie and take it all upon herself and lie and say she got grants and scholarships. And the only reason we came out and spoke about that in the media, people were, fans, Uber fans were saying, why can't the Markle family just be quiet and let her be happy? Because when she lies like that, it's a discredit to our family. It's an insult to our family, but it makes us look like we come short or that we're liars. And when dad paid for everything, why would you take that away from him and not just be honest?
Was she like this? Was any side of this visible before she became famous for marrying a member of the royal family? Or is she just so desperately trying to cover up things from her past that she doesn't care what she says anymore?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I first noticed the change at when she was a teenager, and there was a video that her PR tried to put out there to make it look like she had a pre-existing rift with our dad. And in the video, she's in her car with friends driving around Hollywood, and she points to the Hollywood sign and she says, well, my dad lives up there, but we're not going there because we're not exactly getting along. Well, but she only told one side of the story to make it look like my dad was somehow flawed and not cool enough. She was in a production. There was a woman named Gigi who she was having a rift with, a disagreement, who ran the production, Gigi Perot. And my dad can attest to this. And because she wasn't getting along with Gigi, she demanded that my father quit the production. So he had committed himself to lighting the stage and designing it. And they were already in production. And basically the attitude was comply or I'm going to ice you. Do what I say, Daddy. I want you to walk off that production right now or else. And as a professional, he couldn't do that. So she iced him for a couple of weeks. So they weren't getting along because she had control issues. She demanded my father quit and he wouldn't. Right. But so the whole world was thinking, see, look, her nasty dad. They didn't get along even when she was a teenager.
Right.
So I think some of the
Every family has momentary rifts, and then you're still family. But bottom line, you know, unless
exactly.
run of your fame comes involved, like in this case, and then all of a sudden everybody's a piece of crap, and you're wonderful and wonderful. And I think, from what I understand, even before you and I met, that so much is being revealed. I don't know how she could show her face because didn't they say one of the reasons they left the royal family, they were complaining about no money, no security detail, yet they had security detail and they were afraid of the paparazzi. Yet the first thing they did in California was seek out every deal they could possibly put together. I think it was two major deals. It was $150 million from Netflix. And what was the other deal?
No, actually, this was part of the controversy that led to their exodus.
Mhm.
It turns out that reportedly they were working deals with Disney and they did that whole red carpet Lion King thing
That's
while they were still in royal duty.
I remember
Yeah.
she was supposed to do a voiceover. I think she took their money and either didn't do her part. They had to have it redone or what happened with that Disney deal with your sister?
So she did the voiceover work, and I guess reportedly there was an agreement that she would take the pay and give it to an elephant charity. It
Okay.
seemed like a great thing, you know, as a humanitarian and all. But we heard that the elephant charity, and there were articles suggesting that the elephant charity was disappointed because they never got their money. So allegedly, Disney had to go and pay it again, uh, you know, per the agreement. And what was so weird to me about that, or anything that was controversial and anything that was scrutinized, is here we have a person in the public eye who can do all of these things, you know, engage in all of these seemingly egregious breaches of agreement and what we think is normative for
Social contract, basically.
right. And a lot of the people, especially in the left media, were still quote sucking up to that. Like she could do no wrong.
I've heard
Even when they watch her doing things wrong, they were rationalizing and justifying those things and writing it off as cool and eccentric. And I'm like, no, this is serious rule breaking. This is misrepresentation. This is not honest. But her followers were trying to make it as, oh, they're cool, just let them do their own thing. No, you know, in a court of law, that's not doing your own thing, that's breaking rules, and there are consequences for that.
There was allegations out there swirling around that there was even impropriety, probably still, from what I hear, allegedly, with many of their charities and money disappearing from charities. And I think there's been an alleged accusation of Doria, her mother, Meghan's mother, disappearing. Was it $1 million from Prince Charles, and nothing was ever done about it?
Yeah, I mean, the stories and the whisperings were all over the map about which charity it was and that there were several LLCs registered in Delaware. And the question was, well, if the business is in Santa Monica, why do you have several LLCs registered in Delaware? And reportedly, that's a good state, you know, for tax shelters and for. So it was all very suspicious, and I think a lot of people in the public felt the same way. You know,
I wonder if the people in Invictus realize that how they destroyed the life of a woman in a wheelchair who's a veteran. Are they aware of this? Have you contacted Invictus and said, look, this is serious, and send them a photograph and here's what they've done. Here's the stalkers I've picked up as a result, and my life's in danger. Yet they're going public with a smile on their face, saying they support people who are disabled veterans. And yet,
you know, it's really sad on the one hand because they've got bigger fish to fry than me. They have a lot of veterans. They do a lot of wonderful things. So I didn't feel as though, you know, it would be productive to really beat them over the head with that and make that a big issue.
right.
I thought it was more incumbent upon Harry and Meghan to consider the big picture, knowing that that was my reality, and not only talk the talk in terms of positing that they care about those issues, but demonstrate it by showing a little respect and consideration for her sister, who's also in a wheelchair. And, it doesn't define me, but it's the principle. You don't say one thing out of one side of your mouth and then engage in a completely opposite behavior on the other side of your mouth. It's hypocrisy.
Now, I know Harry was very, very beloved, of course, by Diana and by his grandmother, and everybody in England just loved the heck out of Harry, right? And William. And we had a lot of respect for him over here, too. But I know some of these stories recently are saying that he's been untruthful about certain things. One of them, I kind of laughed about it, was, he said, I think he wishes he can take his kids out on a bike ride, something he was never able to do when he was a kid. Yet there's all this footage of him riding around with his father and Princess Diana on bicycles, his own bike, on the back of a bike. And I'm like, do you have no childhood memory? Or was maybe in his mind he was referring to he couldn't ride out, in public. He was always in a secure compound or whatever, for safety. But I'm just like, why would you do that? And so he's like a guy and a war hero and all this good stuff. But it seems like, what is it with your sister's influence over him? Why do you
Exactly. Yeah. In my opinion, well, they're in such close proximity all the time. And there's an old saying that pets eventually look like their owners, that couples start to mirror each other physically and in their behaviors. And I certainly felt that was happening in their relationship. But when you see someone like Harry, whose life has been lived on the world stage, a playboy, out having a wonderful time, wrestling on the grass with his dad, bike riding, just happy. I've never seen, except for the funeral of his mother, I've never seen pictures of him being unhappy. And so that being said, there's salient evidence that he was happy all of his life and that they did the best they could as a family in spite of the passing of his mother, and that his father loved him very much and gave him a life, that none of us, most kids aren't royal. Most kids can't even imagine that lifestyle. But it wasn't just material, because we know that money isn't everything.
What kind of hold? Sorry, I interrupted you again. What kind of hold do you think your sister, Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, her big title, I guess maybe they lost their titles now because they quit the royal family. What hold does she have over Harry? He's got to see the evidence at this point. I'm not trying to break them up, and maybe he understands her past and he's happy with her and loves her, and she probably has her great side to her. You love her still. I know you do. We've talked. But what in the world does she have over Harry, who was really in line to be king? He could have been, depending on circumstances and family, lineage and all that. What in the world is going on that he is not seeing this for what it is?
Well, it doesn't make sense. He's lost most of his friends. He's lost seemingly what defined him. And he's in between a rock and a hard place. But in my opinion, what's going on is that not only are they mirroring each other, but there seems to be some coaching going on.
Right.
That's not unlike maybe what a Stockholm syndrome victim would go through. That eventually you fall in love with your captor or the person that you're with, because you can't go back to where you are. And I believe that there's been coaching and suggestion that he wasn't happy where he was and that he's happier with her. And I say that on the grounds that he came out publicly and said verbatim, I didn't know I was unhappy until she told me.
Wow. Is Harry truly a psychological hostage of Meghan Markle? Is he a victim of Stockholm Syndrome? Was this once happy family destroyed by a litany of lies told by Meghan Markle on national television and in the tabloids and on Oprah? Why would Oprah allow such a thing if true? We are going to go into part 3 of this explosive series interviewing Samantha Markle, once demonized by Meghan Markle, now a retired Air Force vet in a wheelchair, going up against the entire royal family and the public relations machine of Meghan Markle and Harry. She has been vindicated. She has sent us the proof, evidence, and photos. Stay tuned.